This episode of Lobbing Scorchers is sponsored by Full Pull Wines, a Seattle-based cellar. Not only are they a local company, but they've been supporting independent Seattle soccer media since 2011 and are run by Sounders fans. They offer the best boutique wines in the world to members of their mailing list with special focus on their home, the Pacific Northwest. Their model is simple. 1, they email compelling offers. 2, you request bottles that sound appealing. 3, your wine arrives at their Soto warehouse and is ready for pickup or shipping. Their Soto tasting room is also open to the public. If you're interested in joining their mailing list or learning more about them, visit fullpullwines.com. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 69, nice, of Lobbing Scorchers. This is Ari Liljenwall. I got producer Noah here with me. And Noah, no Sounders game to talk about this week, but I think we've still got a lot of good content to lay down. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling nice, Ari. I'm feeling like episode 69 is about to be the best episode we've ever had.
It's a special episode.
It's really
a special episode here. Like I said, folks, no Seattle Sounders game this week. They were on a bye, international break going on. We're going to talk about
Ari
that.
was also on an international break.
I was on an international break. I've been at my best friend's wedding. You were at a wedding before. We've been wedding guys.
Yeah.
Now we're back to our regular scheduled programming. And no Seattle Sounders game, but a lot to talk about. Like I said, we've got Decision Day coming up on Saturday. The 2024 MLS regular season is wrapping up. We're going to have playoff seeding finalized. We're going to have, there's 2 spots still up for grabs in the East. In the West, there's a lot of movement that could still take place and that could affect Seattle. So we're going to talk about that. This is the first time that we've recorded since MLSsoccer.com's 22 under 22 rankings came out.
Brought to you by Body Armor?
Presented by Body Armor,
And
Heineken, Audi. Anyway, it's always a very exciting day when those rankings come out for the discourse. A lot of takes flying around. I got a ballot. I got to vote for that. Mm-hmm. So I don't have my ballot handy, but I can tell you guys pretty much where I ranked everybody and just my thoughts on what the final lists are. We're going to go through the list and give you guys our takes on how it panned out, tell you how I voted. We're going to talk some end of season awards. I also get votes for that. MVP, newcomer, young player, defender of the year. We're going to talk front runners and who we would pick for the end of season awards. So that's going to be good stuff. I think we might have some heaters there. I'm definitely gonna throw some curveballs, some outside of the box picks there. We got some other news and headlines from around the league. We're gonna preview Seattle's Decision Day matchup against Portland. Preview Decision Day in general. There's just a lot going on. I mean, is that everything? I think I just hit everything.
I mean,
so
hopefully
no game review, but still gonna be a jam-packed show. Can't wait to get into it. But before we do all that, I did want to let you all know, as always, that Lobbing Scorchers is a part of the Sounder at Heart podcast network. If you want to get the best independent Seattle soccer coverage, consider supporting us by going to sounderatheart.com/LS, sounderatheart.com/LS. Scroll down to subscribe and support to get 30 days completely free. Every sign up through our link helps support and grow this show. As always, thank you so much to all of our paid subs. We're going to pull up this list. We have 1 new sub to thank. I believe that brings us to 38 or 39 subs. We're going to read the names out today, but we were talking about before the show, and we do feel like we're reaching the point, Noah, where our numbers are such that reading the entire list every show might be untenable. The benchmark that we are setting for that is 40 subs. Do you know what we're at right now?
We are at officially 38 subs.
38. So we need 2 more, and then we're going to change the protocol.
You'll be in the 40 under 40 club.
That's exactly. After that, we will still read out and thank our new subs, but probably steer clear from reading the entire list because there's too many of you now. 40 plus names, man. We spend the whole show, reading the list. But until we hit that benchmark, we're going to keep doing it.
We're
That's
gonna keep
how much we
cooking them
love
off.
and appreciate you guys. Noah, read the list.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for subscribing. We love you. Kenneth Wade, Joey Pasquinelli, David McCoy, Owen Mason, Daniel Pavato, Samuel Fow, Ian Mitchell, Christopher Smith, Norm Bontier, Thomas Martin, Greg Hoger, Chris Maley, Andy Hill, Mike Lentini, Nate Bontier, David Rodriguez, CJ and Miles Marinakis,
My nephews.
Mark Ottinger, Zach Heckman, David Pope, Brian Morton, Claire Berger, Robert Singh, Tyler Nakatsu, Steve Hudson, Choska, Patrick Sixton, John Hammaker, Emma Mabach, Justin Walker, Jay Anders, Ryan Shane, Nathan Jones, Benjamin Dubashar, Isaac Johnson, Matthew Burns, Ryan Boone, and our new one, Brian Cho.
Brian, thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you, all of you, so much. We love you. Thank you to everyone for tuning in and help us on the drive to 40. And also, if you haven't done so yet, please sub to the Lobbing Scorchers YouTube. We lost a little momentum, with us being wedding guys, not necessarily having the time to keep the content flowing on there as regularly as we would like. So we're still on the drive to 600, but we're pretty close. We're like 15 away, 585, I believe.
Yeah.
So help us on the drive to 600 subs on YouTube, and we appreciate our new audience on YouTube. All right, so before we talk about this 22 under 22 rankings list, Noah did have some content to plug. Noah, you were involved in a Paul Rothrock feature on Sounder at Heart. Shout out Sounder at Heart.
I was. They picked the wrong guy to interact with our boy. It was written
by our friend Tim Foss of Sounder at Heart. Great writer, great profile. Noah, you did a photo shoot with the man himself, Paul Rothrock. So you actually got to hang out with Paul Rothrock.
Did.
How was that? Tell the people how it was hanging out with Paul Rothrock and doing the photo shoot.
Paul is a natural. I mean, just a great guy, but a natural in front of the camera, and it was a joy and a pleasure to hang out with our boy Paul. I will say, shout out to his family who allegedly listened to us. We appreciate all of your listens, and Paul's a great guy. I will say, just as good of a person as he is a soccer player.
That's good to hear. Yeah,
we love Paul Rothrock. This is a pod Rothrock.
Yeah, and we love to hear that the Rothrocks like to tune in. That honestly doesn't surprise me because about 60 to 65% of the content on this show is Paul Rothrock related. Which that's not really we just go wherever the content takes us. And Paul Rothrock, he's been delivering it all season. But shout out to the Rothrocks, and shout out to Paul Rothrock for being a good photo shoot subject for Noah, and a great profile by Tim Foss. Go read it on Sounder at Heart right now.
Yeah. We'll link it in the description.
Link in the description. Go hit that link. 22 under 22.
We're in full force today, Ari. I'm feeling it. We're cooking.
We're going to, so 22 under 22 is always, like I said, a fun day for the discourse. Everyone's got their takes. We're no different. I feel like most people who listen to us probably know what the 22 under 22 rankings are and have opinions on them. But just in case, I feel like there's probably a small percentage out there. There's some normal people that aren't psychotic like us that might not know what it is. So, basically, it's very simple. It's just ranking the 22 best players in Major League Soccer who are under the age of 22. There's an age cutoff, but the whole idea is you're essentially ranking the best young up-and-coming players in MLS, which it used to be 24 under 24, but it changed a few years ago to 22 under 22.
They just keep getting younger, Ari.
I think it's become more pertinent in recent years with MLS taking on more of an identity as a seller league where, players like Thiago Almada, who are very highly rated and on the come up, but still very young, can come here and have a platform to thrive, get sold on. But then also it's a good showcase for homegrown talent, the best homegrown players we see in the league on this list every single year. DeAndre Yedlin, 1 year in 2014, I believe, was number one on this list.
Famously.
You've got guys, Alan Velasco, I think, of FC Dallas, won it last year. So, you got some big time names who are always featured here. And then there's always some comedic misses. For instance, I was thinking about this. You familiar with what John Duran is doing for Aston Villa? Did you know that the year that he played for the Chicago Fire, he did not make the cut?
Wow.
For the 22 under 22. This guy is now banging in multiple goals every single week for Aston Villa, and they're all insane.
Yeah, he's nasty.
He's going to be a Colombian national team player. He's tearing up the EPL, and he got his start in MLS with the Chicago Fire, who sold him on for a big bag of money.
The one good thing they ever did.
Yeah, but that is it's always funny looking back on stuff like that. If you were retroactively making the list from that year, he would be number one by a country mile easily, and it wouldn't be close. But hopefully, I think looking at the list this year, which we're going to get into right now, I think there is going to be less of a possibility for a snub like that happening. Diego Gomez of Inter Miami was voted the number one player on this year's 22 under 22. I think that's the right choice. And if I had to pick any player from this group of players who would follow a similar trajectory to John Duran and get sold on to a huge club like that and become a standout player, this is who I would pick. It's an example of just how loaded this Inter Miami team is, with both the best old players in the league, as we know, with Messi and the Barca boys, but also the best young players in the league. I mean, who's better between Diego Gomez and Matias Rojas? He's quite a bit older. He's later on in his 20s, but he's younger than the Barca boys, right. And he's a new player to MLS. And like in a normal year or on a normal team without Messi and the Barca boys, he would be one of the best.
Those two alone would be a dynamic duo.
Alone. But Diego Gomez, if you haven't watched him play yet, he's very much, Chris Henderson talked about this in the feature story that Charlie Baum wrote for us about Diego Gomez. He is, in a lot of ways, one of the engines of that team, like outside of the obvious, Messi and Sergio Busquets. Diego Gomez, he's a very, very important player to how they play and what they do. And he's like a perfect complement, I think, skill set wise to a lot of, like, he's more of a two-way dirty work type of player to my eye. Very good passer. He's a little bit goal dangerous as well, but like he's like a glue guy, a team player, type of player that every player needs. And I think, given his age and just how well-rounded a skill set he has so far and his future sell-on potential, easy choice for number one. Diego Luna, the other Diego, came in at number 2. I slightly debated whether to put Luna number 1, but I think when you're taking into account future upside, I would take Gomez probably over Luna. It's pretty close, but not that close ultimately. As far as the number 1 goes, I don't think there's any other choice.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the fun part with this list, is that it is as much of like a wish. You're guessing. You're like, this is as much about vibes as it is about actual raw talent. You know, like Diego Gomez, in my mind, like vibes wise, has such a higher upside potential. But is he playing out of his mind light years ahead of Diego Luna? I mean, I don't know. I don't think so. So it's like
they're completely different players. So it's like it's tough to compare like that. For me, I mean, I guess a good thing to talk about with this is what criteria you use to make the list, because everyone's kind of got a different take on it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you how I think of it, which is the things I take into account are, you know, prospect pedigree is one thing that I think should be taken into account. Like how the pundits and the scouts think of them. That's something I don't necessarily base my own evaluation of the player on that, but consensus pedigree and how they're rated by the pundits plays into it. And that's what we're going to talk about that with some of these guys, because some people weigh that more than others when they're voting on their list. But I take that into account because I sort of, I try to stay mindful of the fact there's people who know more about this than I do, who are actually paid to scout these things. And if they say that someone's upside is at a certain level, I put stock in that if there seems to be consensus behind it. So that's one thing I take into account. And along with that, like I said, the theoretical upside, like what's their ceiling? I weigh that pretty heavily, a guy like Diego Gomez or like Alan Velasco is perceived to have a very high ceiling, and it doesn't mean they're necessarily guaranteed to hit it, but it's just about the potential of what they could become. So I weigh that quite a bit. And then I do think you have to take into account contributions that they've already made in the league. Some guys you can put in here based on upside, and I did that. But as for the guys I put up towards the tippy top, I like to put guys that actually have a fair amount of minutes under their belt, and ideally some like tangible production that they've already showed that they can do in MLS. So just looking at the list of the first few guys on here, Diego Gomez, very key player for Inter Miami this year. Diego Luna, he carried a big load for Real Salt Lake and attack this year.
When he was bad, they were bad.
And when he was good, when he was breaking out, they were good. And just production wise, he had an excellent year. So that's why I think him at number 2 is the right call. Jack McGlynn, see, this is where it gets into Jack McGlynn at 3. All right, we've touted the Philly Union Academy quite a bit on this show. We respect.
We're believers.
We respect what they've done for youth development, and I think
I'll even say I'm a Jack McGlynn believer.
I'm a Jack McGlynn believer. He absolutely bammed on the Sounders this year. He's got a wand of a left foot, excellent set pieces, pretty good two-way player. It seems like hard worker. brings it on defense. A lot to like with Jack McGlynn. He's one of the better of this crop of guys that Philly has churned out. I think he's a little overrated to be at number 3 here.
Yeah.
There are guys that I would put. That's like the first disagreement I have with the final rankings.
Yeah.
Is I would put Jack McGlynn high. He's certainly on the list. 3 seems very high. Brian Gutierrez at 4, I might even rank above Jack McGlynn. I think what he's done with Chicago has been very impressive in terms of being asked to carry a big load for them as an 18, 19-year-old and running the offense and putting up the type of production that he is. He has not like performed like an elite number 10, but I got to say, like, I've been impressed with Brian Gutierrez, like dating back to last year on a bad Fire team. Being asked to carry as much of the load as he is. I don't think he's like a build your whole attack around him type of player, but I think he's showing that he's above average to potentially very, very good and productive MLS attacker, which for a homegrown player, that's a great outcome for them.
I mean, Brian Gutierrez has 6 and 2, right?
What did he have last year, though? I feel like he had a better year last year.
Let's dive into this. But I feel like I think he did have a better year last year. But even with that, like, it's a Chicago Fire team. I think they've scored 40 goals total or something. Like,
it's a tough situation for him and Chris Brady, who also is on this list. I mean, Chris Brady, I definitely think is easily the most talented young goalkeeper in MLS. He just is playing for a nightmare defense. At number 5, you have another Inter Miami guy. Okay, so it's 2 more Inter Miami guys back to back. Federico Redondo and Benjamin Cremaschi, both of whom I would probably put both of them over Brian Gutierrez and Jack McGlynn. Yeah. And I would certainly I think Redondo should be 3. I think
I'm in agreement with that.
Redondo, as I understand it, is one of the most highly rated Argentine prospects out there in the world. His dad was a very good player in like the 90s and early 2000s, and he's got some like prodigy like skills about him, and he's been very, very good for Inter Miami. And I think you're going to see him. I mean, Diego Gomez is going to get sold on for a huge bag, but keep an eye on Redondo for that, because he is too. And Cremaschi, I think, is a little more polarizing, but I do see quite a bit of upside there. He's been playing with Messi, and I'm sure learning quite a lot. Imagine being 18 or 19 years old and getting to play with Messi. I got to imagine that's making him a lot better. But also, I think Cremaschi is very talented, and I see why he's ranked this high. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I like Redondo. I would put Redondo at 3. I think my lineup would, if I was going to go a top 3, would be Diego Gomez, Diego Luna, and Redondo. And then Brian Gutierrez is a close flop with Redondo, just for upside purposes.
Okay, well, here's where it gets interesting for us, because we got Obed Vargas at 7.
Yeah.
And I think there is a really good argument to be made that Obed should be higher here. Yeah. I would put Redondo over Obed. I don't think I would put Cremaschi over Obed.
No.
And I don't think I would put Jack McGlynn or Brian Gutierrez over Obed. As good as Brian Gutierrez has been, I don't think he is provenly, consistently, like, very good to elite player in MLS in the same way that Obed has, starting for Seattle week in, week out. I think with Obed, you have to take into account the fact that he was starting games and playing major minutes in CONCACAF Champions League, which Seattle won. He helped him win Champions League when he was 16.
Yeah.
He made his MLS debut as like the 3rd or 4th youngest player to ever play in MLS in the famous Austin FC game. And if you look at the year that Obed had this year, he had the stat sheet production with his 7 assists. He passed the eye test, I think, every single game. And really, we talked about his development. We tracked his development game by game, and the way he started impacting games, impacting winning, I think is greater than the degree that Brian Gutierrez and Jack McGlynn have. And even though, like, with the acknowledgement that Obed had perhaps more favorable circumstances as far as the team he's playing on than those two guys, I think his development was like organic, independent of that. And he really, when I look at it, I'm going to give the nod in the higher ranking to the guy whose team was more successful. And Inter Miami, it's a little harder to make that argument because their team is so loaded that a young guy doesn't have to do as much for them to have success as a team. Without Obed on the Sounders, I don't think there's any way they're as successful this year based on the role he played and the impact he had on taking positive results. He should be higher. Like I said, easily over McGlynn or Gutierrez for me, probably over Kramashi and the Diegos and Redondo.
So
are
you
the
put
ones
him,
that I would put
you put him
over.
at 4.
I think I'd put him at 4, not 7.
Yeah.
And I realize that's probably a little Seattle bias in there.
No.
And the fact that we watch him every single game in and game out.
That is true.
But I watch the other guys a fair
We're
amount
both
as
sickos.
well.
We watch.
We're sickos. Trust me, I know I watched the Brian
You
Gutierrez.
get paid to watch.
I've watched the Brian Gutierrez tape. I know what's up with Brian Gutierrez. Watched a lot of Jack McGlynn. So it's not like I'm coming into it out of nowhere, like evaluating those guys.
I think it was a little East Coast bias on Jack McGlynn there. Like, I think the union
not even
propaganda,
East Coast, but like Philly specific.
Yeah, the union propaganda was doing a number there. Obed Vargas, we say it literally, it seems like every episode. I think we've probably stopped talking about it as much recently just because it's not even like a narrative to track anymore. It's just settled. He's a starter. He is one of the best players on the field and is now playing for the Mexican national team. Like, he's 19 years old. And this is every single time he gets on the field, he shows upside. He gets better. I have not seen him get worse. So, yeah, his ceiling, I think, is insane. He clearly wants to, he said he wants to play in Europe. So, I think that's another thing to tack on there.
It's good that the pundits at least put him in the top 10.
Yeah,
I'm not like super aggrieved that he's at 7. I think it's just good that he actually got that recognition.
Top 10 is a big deal.
And I think it's good that I think even if I would rate Obed above him, I'm glad to see Brian Gutierrez that high because I think that a lot of how good he's been has been overshadowed by how bad the Chicago Fire are, and it really shouldn't be. Like, he deserves the sort of prospect pedigree that he's been given based on how he's played these last couple of years.
Yeah, and I will say, like, Benja Kramashi last year was number 2, so he's dropped quite a bit in these rankings.
Usurped by 2 guys on his own team.
Right. And Brian Gutierrez was number 5 last year, so he moved up one.
Okay, interesting. All right, well, as we work our rest of the way through this list here, I'll just give you some other players who I think I like and or maybe think should have been higher and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You got Quinn Sullivan coming in at 8 right behind Obed. I think is it just I rate Quinn Sullivan over Jack McGlynn?
Yeah, I agree. Quinn Sullivan's been actually like putting in the work.
Quinn Sullivan had a great year this year. He had 15 goal contributions, double-digit assists. I don't know. I think maybe if there's any Philly fans who follow this closer than I do that think I'm bugging on that, feel free to let me know. But me personally, based on what I've seen, I think you could swap McGlynn and Sullivan here, and I would not argue with that at all.
Yeah, and it seems like that's more of the Obed argument too. He's a game in, game out starter who's clearly seen progress and puts up stat sheet production, which is like, maybe that's what we're biased to. I'm biased to that. I don't really understand the hype train thing.
You got to at least take it into account.
Yeah.
There are players that play roles that don't necessarily show up on the goal contribution stat sheet. But if you have a guy like Quinn Sullivan who plays the role that he does and gives you double-digit assists, I definitely I put a lot of stock in that. Jalen Neal of the LA Galaxy at 9 is a player that I like. A lot of people think he has future U.S. men's national team upside. I think I'm kind of in on the Jalen Neal hype in the sense that he's a dog. I was watching El Trafico a couple weeks ago, and he was going up against Denny Bwanga. And the first half, Denny Bwanga was just eating his lunch, just dominating this kid. And then the second half, some sort of switch flipped, and Jalen Neal was just going at Denny Bwanga and totally shut him down in the second half. But it was also what impressed me the most about it was just how he was playing. Like he was tenacious. He was like talking trash to Denny Bwanga. He was trying to get into his head, which like, I don't know how much that's going to work, but for a 19-year-old to be like trying that stuff and then also just showing no fear, I think that's kind of what I like about Jalen Neal's game is he doesn't really care who you are. He's gonna go hard, and I think that we'll see like what his ultimate upside is, but like he's been really good for the Galaxy, and he's been like a big reason why their defense has been much better this year is like him coming to his own. I think he could honestly be a little higher. This kid Esmir for the New England Revolution is I'm not going to try his last name, but I can tell you he's a big scout and pundit guy.
Yep.
They think he's really, really good, and there's been flashes of it this year. But like down at this point of it, Noah, like Chris Brady at 13, man, I almost feel like that's too low, and maybe that's me weighing theoretical upside more than some people. But I mean, Chris Brady is really, really talented.
Yeah.
Like he is some of the saves that he like being the goalkeeper for the Chicago Fire is a hard job. You're facing a lot of shots. A lot.
Yeah, all
You're
the time.
facing like 25 a game.
Yeah.
From
It's
their
basically
best
playing with no defense.
Yeah. So like he has to be on his stuff because he knows he's going to be under siege for most junctures of pretty much every game. And he is for the most part up for it. He gets bammed on a lot, and I think that's probably why his perceived stock might not be as high as some people think. But like, if you put Chris Brady on a team with a good defense, I have no doubt he would be like rated as one of the best goalkeepers in the league. He's honestly, I think, the best like young homegrown goalkeeper I have seen since I've followed MLS. I would rate him that way.
That's a heater. I mean, that.
He's that good, man. Like if you watch Chicago Fire game, definitely pay attention to how much work the goalkeeper has to do, and then how well Chris Brady does at it, giving the circumstances. All right.
Should we just jump down to Kavan Sullivan at this point?
Yeah,
at
exactly.
18?
Exactly. You read my mind. That's exactly what I was going to do. Let's do the Kevin Sullivan takes.
Yeah.
He should be higher. I'm just going to say it.
Oh,
he should be higher.
Disagree.
He should be higher. And
Here,
this
we'll
is why.
spout it out. Okay, you cook.
Okay. No one else on this list already signed to Manchester City when he was 14. Okay.
Boo.
Am I wrong? Name another player on the list who has accomplished that.
I mean, I guess that's true. You can't deny that. I mean, you could argue that Christian McFarland is technically signed because, City Football Group owns New York City FC. So
I just think it's a very unique case. I would not most prospects that are this young that have pretty much no first team experience. I would agree. Like you can't really put them on a list before they've played or contributed in MLS at all yet. I think this is a unique case where you are talking about one of the most highly rated prospects for his age group in the world, if not the most highly rated prospect for his age group in the world, which people think I'm exaggerating when I say that. And folks, like that is literally just what the scouts and pundits say. Like I've seen multiple scouts and multiple pundits, however much stock you put in what they say that he is not only the best player for his age in the country, but one of, if not the best in the world. That is like unique type of pedigree that you frankly don't see very often. It's that type of prodigy phenom status that only comes around every so often. I think you can't really overstate how kind of difficult it is for a U.S. soccer prospect coming up to catch the eye, let alone get signed by a club like Manchester City, which is the best team in the world, I think, right now. Like, is there anyone that you would put above them? Like, I don't think so.
No, but here's my argument.
All right,
I think he's in the correct spot. I think 18 is a perfect spot for where he's at. He doesn't play in Major League Soccer. I mean, he plays in Next Pro. Like, with all due respect for, again, like one of the most highly touted young players in the league, he's 15 and he played 6 minutes in MLS.
It's certainly not based on senior
9
team.
minutes. Yeah.
I mean, I would argue that the fact that he's played 9 first team minutes at his age and at his size too is like, that's like evidence of his like
And it's not like
pedigree
he's
and
doing
accomplishments. Like
poorly in Next Pro. Like he has 4 goals in 18 matches. Like that's pretty solid.
Good for a 14, 15-year-old. Like that's, I mean, and also when he has played against like his own competition, his age, he's just been far and away like the most dominant players. So like that like I'm just saying, Man City pedigree doesn't like come out of nowhere. That's not like that. There's substance behind that. That's not just like
I'm
hype.
not disagreeing that he isn't one of the 22 best young players in the league. I think he is. But I think also this idea that because he's signed with Man City, he's somehow this like insane product. Man City does this all the time. They sign young players all the time on these weird contracts, and he will get loaned out for 25 years and never see Man City ever. If he sees Man City, if he sees the field for Man City, I will eat my words. And honestly, I'm rooting for him. I like the Sullivan family. I like all the Sullivan boys.
You're just trying to pump the brakes on the hype train, and I'm trying to drive the hype train.
We're just in different points with that because like I really do think he could be a good player, but I do think it's incredibly unrealistic. And I love Tom Bogues, one of my favorite pundits out there. Shout out Tom Bogues. He had him above Obed Vargas in his rankings, and there was a lot of people who had him there. They were like had him in the top 10.
It depends how
I just disagree. Yeah. I cannot agree with that.
It just depends your criteria, because if you were doing this list like purely on upside and potential, I think he would have to be.
But I disagree, because I think Obed Vargas has just as much upside and potential to be successful in his long-term career than Kevon Sullivan does, because they essentially started their careers around the same time. Obed was one of the youngest players when he came in, right? But he's actually seen consistent minutes, has trophies to his name, has big competitions to his name, and has been in a system and progressed in a way that is way more, in my mind, healthy to the development of a young player than being sprung up and tossed into a game when you're 15 so you can get the messy clicks, which, like, no disrespect to Philly Union for doing that. That was smart. They're trying to keep him happy, keep him there. And it was a fun story. Anyway, we were hyped on it. We did basically a whole 30-minute thing on it. But I'm definitely pumping the brakes. I think at 18 is the perfect spot for him. I think he landed at the perfect spot.
And I understand the inclination to like slow down the hype train. I'm not gonna downplay like the pedigree at play when it comes to getting scouted and signed by Man City when you're 14. You could be right. It could be one of those situations, like we've seen, like when Yedlin went to Tottenham and he never really played for them, or like, I see what you're saying with that. I would be pretty surprised if Kevin Sullivan didn't follow like at least a similar trajectory to like a Pulisic or a Weston McKennie or U.S. men's national team prospects of that ilk that have played for the likes of, Pulisic has been on Chelsea. He's played a long time for Borussia Dortmund, Inter Milan. So, like, I don't know if Kevin Sullivan's going to reach that height, but he certainly has the potential to. And there's just, like, even on this list, like, I don't know how many players there are that have that potential. I think Diego Gomez has the potential to go play for clubs like that, and not just go play for clubs like that, but like excel is kind of the criteria that I'm thinking of. Like Gomez could, Redondo could for sure, but like past those Inter Miami guys, like it feels. It's just a very inexact science, and you never know what's going to happen. So, we don't know what's going to happen with Kevin Sullivan either. But like, I personally, I put a lot of stock in how much, not just the fact that he's one of the highest rated prospects in the world right now, but like how much higher he seems to be rated than everyone else his age. And like I said, like I'm basing that not off my evaluation, just what I've heard and read. And then also like, I've watched the highlights on YouTube and stuff, and he's pretty nasty with it. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be fun to track, but I think there's a good argument that he could have been higher. And really it's, like I said, it comes down to criteria, upside versus like contributions that you've already made. So I don't mind guys that have played more than him and contributed more being ranked higher, but he's got as much upside as anybody on here. I feel confident in saying that. Okay, I think that was a pretty good riff we just had on 22 under 22. I don't really have much else looking at this list right now. I mean, there's some other really good players on here, but like no one that I really feel the need to highlight right now. I mean, you got Tomas Aviles, who's just another Inter Miami one that could be ranked up with Cramashi and Redondo. So it's just kind of ridiculous how many of these guys they have. David Ruiz is 21. He's insanely good too. Yeah. So really, I guess that's my other big takeaway from the 22 under 22 this year is that Miami's roster is insane. They have the best old guys and the best young guys.
They just have the best. We say this every day. They're the most stacked team that this league has ever and may ever see.
And I think the thing that people maybe don't realize about that is it's not just the Barca boys coming over and wrecking shop. It's their whole roster and it's their young players and their youth development that are doing the job for them right now too. That's how you end up one game away from breaking the MLS points record, Noah. That's how that happens.
It's wild. I think that's the total takeaway from this. If I was going to say anything, is like if there's a winner, it's Inter Miami.
Yeah.
If there's a winner, it's Inter Miami.
That was good. That was a good Kevin Sullivan debate, though. Yeah. I think it's not rare that
it has to be done.
We find ourselves like on that opposite end of a spectrum. So I like that. We should.
Yeah, the last time was the Raul debate. So we'll see how this one
that one up because
out.
You won that.
Yeah,
one,
exactly.
So we'll see, man. We'll see. I know. Kevin Sullivan is so young that a lot of people are hesitant to, you don't want to like overhype a kid that young. You don't want to put too much pressure on someone who like hasn't proven anything yet.
God knows he could get injured.
He could get injured. A lot could happen, but it's definitely like, there's no doubt that he's a very exciting prospect. And I mean, like at the very least, I think he's projects to be a lot better than Quinn, and Quinn is a really good MLS player right now. So I'm excited to see where it goes. All right, let's do our end of season awards. Woo! That sound fun? Woo! We're gonna talk about MVP, newcomer of the year, young player of the year, defender of the year, goalkeeper of the year, comeback player of the year, coach of the year. That's the full ballot, I believe. So, all right, what I did, Noah, as you can see here, I wrote out who I looked at the list of nominees, wrote out who I thought were the front runners. I have my picks among these.
Me too.
So for every category, I'm going to read out like who I think are the front runners. You can add, if I missed anybody, you can add a name, but I think I have roughly like, it's both who I think the pundits are considering and like who I would want to consider.
You have to read it out in like the award show announcement voice though. Like
first up for MVP.
Yeah, exactly.
We have, I don't think I'm going to do that for every category.
It'd be a good bit.
Landon Donovan. Let's do MVP first.
Yeah.
Landon Donovan, MLS MVP, because this is the one that's going to get the most debate. And I actually have a new take on this that I'm excited to debut my take. No T on the debut.
No T.
But there's some good candidates, and it's really like we've talked about our MVP takes a little bit, and it's wide ass open the way I see it. Like there's a few different ways this could go, and like usually like last year it was just like
lockdown.
But like this year I think it's a lot. There's a lot more debate to be had. Here's who I have for who I consider the front runners. I think one of these guys is going to get it. You have Lionel Messi, Cucho Hernandez, Lucho Acosta. I put Ricky Puig, and I think Luis Suarez will probably get some votes based on name value, but also he's had a great year. So that's who I think are the front runners. Is anyone missing that could realistically win it?
No.
I don't think so. Okay, so I think there's a few things to think about here, which is that I've been saying it, like Messi's not just the MVP of Major League Soccer in 2024. He's the MVP of the entire sport of all time.
Easily.
So, like, I just don't really honestly see a credible argument that anyone in the league is more valuable than Messi, because there has never been, if you're looking at it purely from just statistical output perspective, there's no one who can produce what he does with the volume that he does as efficiently as he does. You know, it's essentially like like this the Steph Curry of soccer or something like that. Like
I think that's Christian Pulisic though.
It's just what I mean is like the type of it's like the type of
unbelievable production that is statistically like
it's
should
like,
be impossible.
You know how the people who make NBA 2K like can't account for Steph Curry's like actual the numbers that he puts up in real life. Like that's the sort of numbers that we're talking about with here. And I think I brought this point up the last time, but I'm going to say it again because I think it actually underscores why Messi's the MVP, which is that he has 17 goals, 15 assists in 20 games or something like that this year. So 32 some odd goal contributions in 20 games.
That's insane.
Folks, he played like 1,100 minutes. If you put 1,000 more minutes on top of that with 0 goal contributions, give him 0, the exact same numbers he put up, we all know that he would easily be the MVP with those exact stats that he put up in 1,100 minutes.
Yep.
Like, I don't see what the counter argument to that is. So if we all take that for granted, which I think that we should, how are you going to like argue that the guy who had 32 goal contributions in 1,100 minutes is not the most valuable player? I get that people aren't going to give it to him and don't want to give it to him because he missed so much time and didn't play the whole season. I think it's a case where you could really argue that doesn't matter if you're like trying to give it to the right person. You know what I mean?
I do.
Am I bugging here?
I've never understood the argument of time being such a crucial point because it's like he didn't choose to get hurt. He played like 1 billion games and then was like, I'm old. I'm hurt.
The reason that he missed a lot of games was because he won the Copa America with Argentina and sprained his ankle. Yeah. So that's why he didn't play a full complement of minutes.
I'm sorry.
And look, I say all of that. I say all of that with the acknowledgement that I might not vote for him just because I do think like on some level there is there's like a minute's threshold or amount of games that like you could argue that you should have to play to like be in consideration. I know that kind of contradicts what I'm saying, but like, I don't know, like who really deserves it and who gets it can be two different questions sometimes. And this is where that wasn't even my like new take. That's the take that I've already been saying.
Right.
But who I'm torn. I'm actually torn, folks. Leave in the comments who you think I should vote for. I have a vote, so I haven't cast my ballot yet. So
you can lobby Ari for your consideration.
You can lobby me. But here's who I want to vote for. Okay, I've been saying that I'm probably going to vote for Cucho because I think that's like a safe, non-controversial choice.
Yeah, that is safe.
Best player on the other best team in the league and played a full complement of minutes. Right, has the stats, has the big game performances, has the trophy haul, so he has everything that you want, and it would be a good vote. But I'll tell you who.
That's the tired pick. Here's the wired pick.
That's the tired pick, wired pick. Who I want to vote for, Ricky Puig, man.
Ooh.
Ricky Puig. Okay, the numbers are not like up to obviously what Messi has put up or even what Cucho has put up, but when you look at the LA Galaxy, who have gone from kind of a joke of a squad over the last few years to the best team in the West this year. They're probably going to get the number 1 seed unless they lose it on the last day, but they've been in the driver's seat for the number 1 seed for a long time now. One of the best offenses in the league. Who makes it all go? Ricky Puig, who I don't think people realize or give enough credence to how good this guy is. He is a Barcelona product who came to MLS when he was 22, which is, he's very unique in that sense. Like a player like that, who is considered a very prominent up and coming prospect in Spain for Barcelona, you know, where Messi and all them played, doesn't come here at that juncture in his career that often. And, you know, people use that as a knock on him. But if you look how he's played since he's been here, he's been fantastic. He's like changed the culture of that whole team, their whole vibe, his kind of bravado and swagger, you know, like I could do without the like firing off like tweets about the haters after every single game. I mean, I like it to an extent. Sometimes he pops off, and I'm like, all right, like you're a poster. I respect that.
Yeah, he's
maybe
like
a little
me. That's why.
I guess he's like if you were
if
an
I had
MLS
more
MVP
soccer
candidate,
talent, yeah, exactly.
He does.
That would
He really
which is really a nightmare.
He
to be
tweets like
honest.
Noah, so that kind of goes against his MVP candidacy. But no, I mean he's the engine for that whole team. Like we're pro Gabriel Peck and we're very pro Joey Paints on this show. I don't think they have the type of impact that they've had for the Galaxy if Ricky Puig wasn't pulling the strings in the middle.
Yeah.
He is, for my money, with Messi not in the discussion, the best passer in MLS, the best facilitator. Some of the dimes he hits are incredible. His through balls are unbelievable. His switches are unbelievable. He hits nasty free kicks. He does it all. High work rate. He's like reminds me of Ladero a little bit in that way. Maybe not as like constant as Ladero was, but pretty much no one was that. But like he's their Ladero, and he's electric. And
thank you for listening to the Sounder at Heart Podcast Network, which now includes Nos Arietes, Lobbing Scorchers, and the Cooler Guild. We've been independent since August of 2023, but need your support to make sure it continues. Although this podcast is free, it's only made possible by your continued support. Memberships start as low as $25 a year, which not only helps make podcasts like this one happen, but also gets you access to everything we produce. If you're able to support us at higher levels, starting at $75 a year, you gain access to a host of other perks, most notably entry into our members-only Discord, where the smartest, funniest, and most engaged commenters share their thoughts and ideas. To find out more, just visit sounderatheart.com and click the subscribe button in the top right corner. Thanks for listening.
I'm stumping for him for MVP. Like, I think it's a good vote.
I like that. You've convinced me. I see. Okay, my MVP candidate was Messi, which I think is just like from the arguments that we've been saying, and I don't get a vote, so this doesn't mean shit anyway. But I don't care how many minutes you play. I think him playing less minutes and producing the way that he did,
it shows that he's the MVP even more. And people are like, oh, like, well, look at how Inter Miami did without him. You know, how valuable can he be if they were still racking 2 points per game while he was gone? They
wouldn't have the players on that team without him.
That's also true.
80% of that 22 under 22 that was Inter Miami did not come to that club until Messi was there. He changed like, if we're going to talk about changing the culture, that was a team that had to lie, steal, and cheat.
He changed the sport in this country forever.
Yeah, it's like
what's more valuable than that?
What's more valuable?
I'm just
whoa, we're getting meta.
Whoa, we got meta with that.
Dude.
But no, I mean, seriously, man. Like, I think it's important to talk about this because there's this conventional wisdom out there right now that like Messi is just out for MVP, and purely because of the minutes that he played being like half of what the rest of the front runners played, and that's just okay. Well, he's out then. No. I don't think so, man. I think, like you said, if anything, I think the fact that he has the numbers that he does, which are just as good as Cucho, Lucho, and Ricky Puig in half. That shows how much far and away better he is than anyone else, not just in MLS, but who's ever played the game. It was funny. This is a side tangent, but this wedding I was just at, you know, I was talking to people who are soccer fans, but like are like, you know, they're
normals.
They're normal, so they're like they have the classic like anti MLS takes, like retirement league. Any older player who goes to MLS, it's because they're washed type stuff.
Correct.
You know, stuff that we've been hearing for the last 15 years,
really about the league.
But like he was asking me at one point, he was like, I mean, you think Messi could still hack it in Europe? Like, it seems like he moved to MLS just because like he couldn't hang anymore.
Brother, he just won Copa America.
He just won Copa America. Like, he's still like the best player for Argentina, but also I mean, do you think the best player of all time could still hack it in Europe? Like, what are we talking about? He had a 2020 season for PSG right before he came here. So like, I mean, that's a whole like separate argument, not even worth dignifying. I'm just saying, like, if we're talking about the best, most valuable player in the league right now, it's like not even close, man.
No.
And in fact, going through this right now and talking about it, I'm pretty sure I'm going to vote for him. Pretty sure I'm going to vote for him. And I stand on it. Like, I don't, like you said, I don't care about 1,100 minutes. If anything, that strengthens this take.
I think that there's this like idea in all of these voting categories that people make up reasons to like, They want to be smarter than they come off. They want to seem like they're smarter than everyone else. So they're like, well, I'm not voting for Messi because actually the minutes requirement. Shut the hell up.
Well,
shut the hell up and cast your ballot.
Okay, here's the argument I'm sympathetic to, which this might be more the lens that I was thinking of voting for someone else through.
Who would you pick? Who would you pick? Messi, Cucho, Lucho, Gabriel Peck, or Ricky Puig to be on your team? Who would you pick?
Exactly.
Who would you pick?
Yeah, you pick Messi.
You ask anyone, and if they don't say Messi, they're being disingenuous, and that is exactly why he should and will win MVP.
The argument that I'm honestly the most sympathetic to with this, which is that like having Messi on your team, not just your MLS team, but any team, is essentially cheating. Inter Miami, their roster is essentially, it's not actually cheating like some people have been alleging, but
I don't know, Ari.
But it's
you are a league shill.
It's functionally cheating to have one Messi on your team, but then also load up with the Barca boys
Suarez,
and all of the best South American prospects in the world also on the same team. So like they should like they're just on this level that should just be discounted from like normal discussions about like the regular teams in this league and like the awards and stuff. Like,
but that just shows you more why Messi should be MVP because of what he built.
I agree with that. But if someone told me I'm not voting, because how often do I dish a take on this show and I have to be like, well, Inter Miami and Messi are not included in this debate every time.
Yeah.
So like if someone uses that as their rationale to not vote for him, I could see that. And I think that's sort of how I was thinking of it when I was trying to rationalize voting for Cucho or Ricky Puig. But yeah, no, like I'm glad this is why we talk through these things, because I've talked myself into not only casting this vote for Messi, which I've been torn on because of the minutes thing. I've been torn on it. I feel convicted in this, man. Like,
see, this is what I'm here for, to be the devil on your shoulder.
I mean, it shouldn't be. That should be the safe take. That should be the safe take. Like,
it's pundit brain, Ari.
What are we talking about with anyone else?
Brain.
You know,
it is pundit brain.
Hey, if you're, we're gonna move on to the rest of the categories. But if you're like anti Messi for MVP, dish. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me we're wrong. Like I don't see it though. Like I think I have to vote for him.
And Ari will read those comments. So.
I do read them all, unfortunately. Newcomer, I think this one's pretty straightforward to me. I've got Gabriel Peck, but a couple other guys that I think have good shouts. I like this one, Hannes Wolf from NYCFC. Put up like Leo Chu stats this year, but he has been like a pretty reliable key player for NYCFC, and like he impacted team success.
Yeah.
And
as much as you can at Yankee Stadium.
And it seems like he's got a lot of upside. So I think that was kind of like a fun little dark horse that I was looking at the list of nominees, and I was like, that kid actually...
He's actually solid.
Another one who doesn't have enough games or minutes, but I think would have a case if he had come earlier is Kelvin Yeboah from Minnesota United. This is just a guy to keep an eye on in general. Like he's just been banging in goals ever since he got there. Oh man, I want him on Seattle. Don't you want him on Seattle? I would love him.
I wanted Ricky Puig on Seattle. When he was out of contract, I was like, this is the perfect Nico Ladero replacement.
That would have been, man. That would have been. That's kind of, when the another tangent.
This episode is off the rails.
When the anti-Rusnak brigade is like, we need to replace him, my thought is like, we're pro Rusnak, so I'm not really hankering for that. But if you can get a player that's like the exact profile of Ricky Puig, then sure.
Or Ricky Puig.
Or literally Ricky Puig himself.
That was my only, if you can get Ricky Puig, awesome. Otherwise, I would prefer Albert Rusnak.
But otherwise you're literally just hoping for a Rusnak clone when you already have Rusnak. Anyway. We're not going to talk about the brigade. We're going to save that. Sorry.
Off the rails. Newcomer of the year.
Suarez, right? I mean, I think like you have to say the name. Like he might not have knees anymore, but the guy had 17 goals, 6 assists, and really like Suarez in MLS has gone about like I thought it would. He's been great for them. So he wouldn't be a
I can
bad
lob
pick.
my take here on this one if you want.
Well, let me say the last name really quick.
Sorry, I forgot.
And then
I almost cut off our boy.
Well, I just didn't want to. Yeah, exactly. I just didn't want to get through rattling off these names without shouting out Joey Paints, who. The Joey Paints hype train has slowed down a little bit. Still he was my favorite player in MLS when he first got here. I love Joey Paints. I just think he's kind of he got injured for a bit, but then he just got overshadowed by guys on his own team. They're just so loaded that Joey Paints flies under the radar everywhere, but on this show and among the Galaxy fan base.
This is a Galaxy podcast.
It's a Galaxy podcast, and it's really, people say it's a Galaxy podcast. It's not a Galaxy podcast. It's a Joey Paints podcast.
And Ricky Pooch and Gabriel Peck.
But honestly, if I'm predicting who I think is going to win newcomer and who I think should, I don't really think you can go wrong with Gabriel Peck. He had better numbers than Joey Paints this year, and really just honestly, that whole band of three when they're firing is crazy to watch. But Gabriel Peck, he brings the end product. He brings the power, the speed. Him and Joey Paints both. But he really he took over quite a bit for them. And honestly, if you were to undermine the Ricky Pooch MVP case, it would be that he's flanked by these demons, But anyway, I did want to shout out Joey Paints. Noah, who's your newcomer?
My newcomer of the year might surprise some of you because of my early takes. I called him Jello knees. I called him worthless. I called him he'll never do anything in this.
A lot of people said that,
league.
To be fair, yeah.
Suarez. I think he has a genuine shout at newcomer of the year.
He might win.
He's not going to win the Golden Boot race. I thought if he would win the Golden Boot race, no one would vote for him for newcomer because they'd be like, okay, he got his. He got his. But it's it's hard to not reward him for what he did because he did come in, struggled initially a little bit, but really didn't. Took off, had an insane season, even without Messi, was playing out of his damn mind, coming from playing incredibly poorly in, he was in Brazil, right?
He had a good year in Brazil last year.
It was a good year. Okay,
but I think it was preseason where
that's what it was.
His knees looked shot, and everybody was like, "Can this guy make it through a full season?"
Which is what I like. I think it's a good story. I think it's a good he put up the stats, he did the thing, but also Inter Miami undermining that. I would go with Peck.
Oh, okay. So you wouldn't go Suarez?
No, I would pick Suarez, but I'm saying if we're going if we're pretending that Inter Miami doesn't exist.
Okay, I see. Yeah,
1A.
I've said this a few times, but watching this Inter Miami team this season is really giving me my first chance to watch Messi, Sergio Busquets, Jordi Alba, and Luis Suarez game in, game out. When they were running global soccer on those Barcelona teams for all those years, where I think those are considered some of if not the best soccer teams ever assembled.
Yeah,
I really
literally bankrupted their club.
Yeah, exactly. I was not watching them game in, game out during those years. I would see the highlights, but I was not watching La Liga. I was not watching every Barcelona game. And you obviously know Messi is the best in the world. He's playing with all these guys that are the best in the world. But watching this Miami team, I've really gotten to see, okay, why are they so much better than everyone else, on a much more detailed basis? And Suarez is one all four of watching those guys. It's been a pleasure to watch. But Suarez, it's just very impressive. This guy is probably a top 10 striker of all time. I've dished that take, and people said it was too hot. I don't think you could name 10 strikers all time that where you could not put Suarez's name at least in there with them. So I think we're talking about a generationally talented and productive striker. And, it's how Messi, when he stands over a free kick and you're he's going to make it, and then he does a lot of the time. Suarez, it's the same thing. When he's lurking around the box and the service comes in, you're that's probably a goal. That's probably, and then he usually scores it.
Yeah.
As much as any number 9 I've watched in MLS, or really any number 9 period, it's just when he has an open look, you're done. You're done. Like he very rarely he doesn't really miss sitters that often, and he's lethal from any area of the box, even outside the box, both feet. I mean, I don't have to give the scouting report on Luis Suarez, but my point is like. He's like been as advertised at 37.
He has over 500 career goals. Like he is.
I don't care what league you're playing in. Like he ripped up the Brazilian league last year. So like it's
18 and 26 is crazy.
Yeah, he's
at 37 or 37.
He's a beast, and I think he's a good pick for newcomer for sure. But I agree. Like I want it, and I think I'm going to vote for Peck here. Young player of the year. All right, the thing with this is that I don't see how you can put Diego Gomez number 1 on 22 under. It's kind of the same thing.
It is the same thing. I have his name written down too.
However, like if we're doing a thing where he got number 1 for 22 under 22, so we give young player to someone else. Diego Luna, I think I would have no problem with him getting this. I just love his story, first of all. Coming up through, he started at the Quakes Academy, which, but
they have one.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is that he is one of there's 6 really good prospects that have come up. Their homegrown system is not bad. They just none of them play for the Quakes anymore.
That's
right.
They
did. Yeah. They sold Cade Cowell but Diego
fair.
Luna and there's 3 or 4 other names of guys that have come up through their system who just for whatever reason never played or don't play for their first team.
Really
so,
good scouts out there.
But what I like about the Diego Luna trajectory is the USL component of it. Came up with El Paso Locomotive, which shout out New Mexico United. New Mexico United's biggest rival, so hope El Paso Locomotive lose every game. But Diego Luna, he really earned his stripes grinding in the USL and became one of the most highly touted prospects in the country there. And savvy signing by Real Salt Lake, Kurt Schmid, first of all. He was a very hyped prospect when he was getting signed. I was like, I think whatever MLS team does this is going to cook on this, even though it's an unconventional path. Not a lot of big-time MLS prospects come up through the USL like that. Diego Luna did, and he balled out this year. He had 7 goals, 12 assists, very talented facilitator, and really carried their offense in large part for very long stretches of this season at age 20. You know? So I kind of like the idea of voting him for this award with the knowledge that Gomez is probably the best young player, but got number 1 in 22 under 22. And Diego Luna deserves shine for the path he's taken and the season that he's had.
Yeah, no, I don't even have any arguments with that. I think you laid that out perfectly. We can probably just move on to
I mean, other names: Jack McGlynn, Obed, Chris Brady. Yeah. But
I can give.
I think this debate's all about the Diegos for me, at least.
Yeah, I can give a little Obed argument, but I don't even think that anyone will listen because it's
he's just not. It's not going to get it.
He's not going to get it.
The pundits would never do that.
They would never do that.
They would never do it for us. And if we're being real, I think the Diegos, I would rate them slightly ahead of Obed. I just think Gomez's
impact was bigger than Obed's,
and I think upside comes into play here too, where at least I don't know, you might rate Obed's upside up with Gomez's, but I think the general pundit and scout consensus is that Gomez's ceiling is higher. Yeah. Whether you agree with that or not, I don't know.
I don't think pundits tend to rate defensive midfielders highly anyway. I just don't think, especially when you're young, players in those kind of positions don't really get rated and touted as bigger prospects when you're not in those more star roles.
Defender of the year. I've got some heaters here, but I did want to say I noticed a kind of interesting trend with the Defender of the Year discourse this year, which is that Defender of the Year pretty much always goes to a CB. It's basically the best center back award. That's why Aaron Long and Walker Zimmerman usually win it. But Walker Zimmerman was injured this year, and Aaron Long is in the discussion again. But I've seen a lot of Steven Morea
dumb take
propaganda out there.
Yeah, it is propaganda.
It
is.
So you're against a fullback getting it.
I'm not against it.
I was kind of unsure how I felt about it. And I was like, that kind of my thing is they got to be a two-way player. It can't be like a Brad Smith profile where they're really good going forward and rack like a lot of assists, but like aren't very good on it's defender of the year, which is why I think the CB criteria is usually what people default to. But Steven Morea, I mean, one of this Columbus team's superpowers is like how good their fullbacks are like in attack. And it's why you went and saw them go get DeJuan Jones. Like that's their type of fullback. And Morea's, his assist numbers and his stats weren't crazy this year, but I think like that's a lot of what he brings to the table. And as I understand it, he is a very good defender, and a lot of their like those games where they're beating the shit out of LAFC and Denny Bouanga's not doing anything. This guy is a big reason why. So like I get the argument from that perspective, but this is what this got me thinking about is it's like, okay, if we're doing that, then it's Jordi Alba. Like, I'm sorry. I hate to make the
that's fair.
Exact same argument that I just made with Messi, but Jordi Alba's he's literally the best fullback ever, probably. Yeah. Like, I don't know, like maybe some people have, but like in a debate of the best wide defenders that have ever played the game, he is in the 2 to 3 names that you would have to be debating. Absolutely. And he had 16 goal contributions this year as a left back, 12 dimes. He is easily the best attacking fullback I've ever consistently watched play. Like I think that might be who I vote for.
Yeah.
Like
if you're gonna bring like a Morea into the conversation, then it opens the doors to players who are better than him, which is Jordi Alba.
That's what I'm saying, man. That's what I'm saying.
I can get with the agenda.
This Morea stuff, like it's like if we're doing that, we're giving it to Jordi Alba.
Yeah, I agree with that, and that is why we should not be talking about this Morea nonsense. We should be talking about Yeimar and Jackson Reagan.
I had it written down, but yeah, cook.
Yeimar, Jackson. I would give it to Jackson Reagan personally. I think Yeimar has a good shout too. This is my wired take.
Well,
folks.
Here's the thing. Like that, Yeimar and Jackson Reagan are getting
no, they will not win.
They're getting no pundit love for this. And actually, someone informed us. This is a good. Remember this take that someone on Twitter informed us. Sorry. We did. I'm thinking of this live, so I forget who it was. But thank you, whoever it was, for flagging that. This. There was a take from our friends that it was like American analysis. Soccer.
Yeah.
They're underlying numbers, guys. So I knew you wouldn't like their takes. But they were spitting some fire.
I actually know them, so I don't hate them.
No, we don't hate them. We just disagree with their take.
Yeah.
So they were dishing heat about how Yeimar and Jackson Reagan, like the underlying numbers show that they actually like suck and are bad. Mm-hmm. So they should be nowhere near the Defender of the Year debate. Folks, like I don't know what metrics or stats they were using to come to that conclusion.
Vibes.
But like
X vibes.
But like I think when you're making an evaluation like that, you have to take into account like the performance of the team defense, which Seattle, again, I don't know if people realize this. They conceded, I'm pretty sure, the fewest goals in the league again this year for like a second straight year. They actually ended up with one of, if not the best defenses in the league.
Again.
Like, so you have to credit every defender who played a major role, even Nuhu. I'm sorry for some of you. You're gonna like
Nuhu Defender of the Year. Let's go.
I do. Like people will say Nuhu is so terrible, but like, why do you think that he is starting on the best defense in the league every year? Like you think he has nothing to do with that? If that's the take, then that's the take. I don't agree with that, but the point is, like, when you have a defense that performs as well as Seattle's did team wide this year, everyone on the back line gets credit, in my opinion, and the D-mids get credit, in my opinion. Yeimar and Jackson Reagan were the first choice week in, week out starting CB pairing for the best defense in the league. That's both of them at least have an argument. The devil's advocate would be, I think Jackson Reagan had a stretch of the season where his form dipped a little bit. So Defender of the Year, part of my criteria is like dominant front to back. I don't know if Jackson Reagan really did that. Although I will say at the end of the year, he got in great form and started scoring like a bunch of goals. So that's an argument in the pro column. But if you were to devil's advocate the Jackson Reagan candidacy, I think it would be based on consistency. And I think you could say a similar thing for Yanmar.
But his dip wasn't even like that bad.
I was more dramatic about it.
Yes, you were.
Than it actually was bad.
You were ready to pull his contract over here.
I said I had some takes about it. I had a panic attack.
Yeah, you did.
Live on an air. But
it's because he's been so good.
But like now, like he has. I'm just saying like why he's probably not getting as much shine.
Yeah.
But as far as the pundits who are saying that they suck and are terrible, if you're going to dish that take, you have to explain how they anchored the defense that allowed the fewest goals in the league. There's those two things, they do not square. Like terrible center backs and statistically best defense in the league. Unless you've got some like XG differential shit that like shows that the defense.
This is why we shouldn't listen to statistics.
Well, like if there was showing that they like performed at a level where they should have conceded 65 goals, I might listen to that, but I don't think that's the case. And I think like you said, it's a case of like outsmarting yourself a little bit with that.
It's the punditification of all of this stuff. It's like you have to I'm like, oh, I'm smarter than you all actually, because Steven Morea is actually like, he's like the defender of the year, man. Like he's like a defender and definitely not like a progressive passing player that's like not a wing back. But let's pretend that Jordi Alba doesn't exist, because if we pretend that Jordi Alba exists, then this whole defender of the year thing blows up and we might as well not even vote for one.
I think people are just going into it with the Inter Miami is excluded mentality.
It's
like that's
just so dumb.
But like
man.
it was funny for me to see in the last couple of days. Like it was like this coordinated campaign for
was?
Steven Morea. Yeah,
I know. I saw armchair analyst out there even couching.
There was a lot of this, and a lot of people I think saw the mainstreamness of this take.
We need to seclude the voters. Stop the count.
But if this Morea movement is happening, I'm voting for Jordi Alba. And dude, I think I'm voting for Jordi Alba. I know it's a hot take to say I'm voting Messi for MVP and Jordi Alba for Defender of the Year, but like I think we got to talk about like who's actually the best at this, and those are the two guys I think.
If we're gonna open it up for Steven Morea, it's got to be Jordi Alba. It's not even a question. And if we're not gonna open it up for Jordi Alba and Steven Morea, then it's got to be
Jackson Reagan.
I'll take Yanmar. Either one. Most dominant defense in the league. Shout out to Aaron Long, former Sounders 2 legend. Wouldn't even be mad if he got it either.
Okay. Goalkeeper. I think this one's actually pretty clear cut.
Andrew Thomas.
Andy T. Yeah, I had that bit in
that
there.
Is,
I'm glad we got that.
I stole that. I'm
yeah.
sorry. I stole your bit there.
Good. We had to
the comedic timing was just there.
Andy T. Is my I think when you look at when I look at who I want to vote for goalkeeper of the year, I use the FBref metrics a lot for these, because I think those are like, they're not the be all end all, but it's like a good reference point for like if you're looking for like the finer points of how good a year someone had. Christian Kalina for Charlotte FC. People might not realize this, but he's been lights out for them this year. And like Charlotte FC, no one talks about them, but they've low key been like a pretty solid playoff team all year. Not because they score a lot of goals, but it's sort of the Nashville SC blueprint where they're just really solid at the back and have elite goalkeeping. And I think this guy's been the best goalkeeper in the league this year, both by the
designated
underlying number. That's St. Louis, but both the underlying numbers and the eye test. And I think it's actually very clear cut. The only other one that I would throw in there, who I think deserves a lot of consideration that people might not know about, who's had a crazy year, is Matt Freese from NYCFC. But I got Kalina pretty easily. I think Steph Fry missed some time this year, which I know we just said doesn't matter, but also I think he's been very good this year, especially down the stretch here and the end of the year. Like this whole stretch where Seattle's been playing at 2 points per game again. Stephen Fry has been the same Stephen Fry as always. So, but like I just think to my eye and to my mind, Kalina has been just a little better. Like that's how I see it.
I love Stephen Fry. Let him play till he's 185 years old.
He's signed for like a couple more years, and I'm like, nah, I'm with it.
Yeah, listen, respect to him. It's just this wasn't his season. I think
he wasn't bad, but he wasn't like.
There were moments where I was like, let's leave him in the city that we're at.
There were a lot of takes like that earlier this year. Yeah.
Which, like, I mean, it happens. We all have our lapses, especially as you get older. You're not going to play every single game out of your damn mind. But I do think there has been a slight decline in his play, and I don't think it was his best season ever.
Earlier this season, I saw this decline people were talking about maybe a little more.
Yeah.
The last
rebound.
The last 10 to 15 games, like I think he's been pretty much the same as always.
Yeah.
But I think it's really my take on this one is it's more a testament to how elite a year Kalina has had. More than like a knock on the year that Fry's had.
I'm right there with you. That's who I had as well.
Okay, sick. Comeback player of the year. This will be a fun one. I have 3 names written down that I liked out of the nominee list. So I'll make the case real quick for all of them and then tell you who I am going to vote for. I saw Maxi Morales' name on there, and I was like, that's actually kind of fire.
Yeah.
Because he's 37. He's a legendary number 10 in this league. NYCFC brought him back. He tore his ACL in his like mid to late 30s, worked his way back, came back this year, and kind of cooks. And his presence on that team is just so funny to me because first of all, he's 37 and they're probably the like team that has gone and committed the most to their
he's
young
the
players.
Opposite of their
he's literally plan. So you see Maxi out there playing with all these 19 to 21 year olds. So I just kind of love the visual of him like mentoring this team of like under 22 signings. But he's also he is 5'3".
That's so sick.
He's tiny.
I love that.
And like just the way I love watching him play just because it's like to make a cross sport analogy. When I was in high school, I went and saw the Lakers play when Steve Nash was on the team.
Oh,
and
yes.
I went to go watch Kobe because he was my favorite player. But
R.I.P.
But Steve Nash was on the team, and he ended up being the player that me and my sister, who I was at the game with, were like, this guy is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Because he's like 5'11" on the court with all these guys that are like 6'10", and watching him live in person, like dribble and weave in this, like it looked like he was in like a forest of trees, but it was just like it was one of the most like impressive athletic things I've ever seen in person. I feel like Maxi Morales has like that like kind of, it's like the same idea where it's just that low center of gravity. Everyone else on the field's like so much bigger than him, but like you can't get the ball off him. He's just like he's one of the most underrated 10s in league history, in my opinion. But I'm not going to vote for him because I was looking at this is funny because it totally contradicts my Messi take. But like really, he didn't even play 1,000 minutes.
No,
and
he's the right story for the award.
He is. I just feel like comeback. More than MVP, it actually matters.
The narrative is important.
The narrative of
the narrative's important, but it has to be matched by the play style.
Yeah, I don't know. Like thinking of it now, man, like he's at like 800 minutes. It's just like barely below the threshold of feeling like I can vote for him and it have it make sense. But I just wanted to give him a shout because he is the right. I think he's like the best narrative, and he's an MLS legend. Like
he really is.
He's such a dope player. And then the other one that I liked was Ian Frey from Inter Miami, who's he's not like one of their imported young players. He's their homegrown center back who he's done his ACL at least 2, maybe even like 3 times.
It's time to hang it up, buddy.
Well, so that's what you would think. But this year he came back, and I'm going to look up exactly how much he played, but I know that he scored at least 2 goals from his center back spot and was like getting some minutes for them. And this is a kid, like I said, multiple ACLs. And like, I remember when he did it last year at the beginning of the season, it was so sad, man. Like it was one of those things where it was his first game back after rehabbing an ACL, and he did the other ACL in the first game back. The other one, Like, what are the odds of that? But anyway, again,
he's only played 600 minutes though.
The right narrative
minutes.
arc, but just like 13 games, 600 minutes. Don't know,
which is hard to get into that Inter Miami team.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if I can vote for him with less minutes than Maxey, but I'll just tell you who I'm actually going to vote for. I think I'm going to go with Lewis Morgan from the Red Bulls. He had, I think, multiple injuries last year, or at least like one really bad one. Didn't really play a lot, and has carried their team for long stretches of this year. Ended up with 19 goal contributions, 13 goals, 6 assists. And I think he is the right balance of he has the narrative arc of coming back from the injury, but then also played a major weekend game in, game out role for them this year and had the production to back it up. So that's my vote.
No, I like that. I like Lewis Morgan, Scotland legend, has been playing in the national team too.
I don't really see like who else gets it.
Yeah, I think that's the right pick. I think the narrative is definitely not as strong as the other two. So if you're gonna go like narrative arc, which I think is totally fair with this spot, if you're just like, dude, I just want narrative, there's two better options, but I think realistically Lewis Morgan will win.
Again, talking my way through it just now, I kind of want to vote for Maxey.
But that's the thing is, like, I feel like someone like Maxey Morales, that's what this award is designed for. All of the other
who
awards,
cares that it was 800 minutes is 800 minutes.
Yeah, like this award is for me designed so that you can award a player, like it's like wow, you shouldn't be playing, and you are. And I think that the perfect representation of that, or just overcoming obstacles, continuing to persevere. I mean, Maxey Morales embodies that, and he's a legend to the league. If I had to vote, I would vote for him. Minutes be damned.
I think I'm going to vote for him. I'm like, every time I make the case on the podcast here, I become convicted in my outside the box picks that I wasn't going to go with. But now I think Messi for MVP, outside the box pick. That's really outside
there we go.
Box.
Come on.
But like, it kind of is right now. So anyway, I think I was fully Lewis Morgan, and I think he probably gets it. I think I'm going to go vote for Maxey, and
there we go.
I feel good about it. Coach of the year. So we already talked about this, making the case for Schmetz on our last episode. I think the three candidates right now are Wilfred Nancy, Tata Martino, and Chris Armas. I think one of those three is going to get it. You can listen to our last show if you want to hear the full breakdown for why we think Schmetz deserves more consideration in this discussion. This is tough for me, man, because the three guys who are going to get it, I don't really think any of them should get it. But I also don't really have a good argument for who should get it instead of them, other than Schmetz. And dude, okay, honestly, like people are gonna call me a homer for it. I don't think you can name a better coaching job than what Schmetz did this year. I really don't. If you disagree, hit those comments.
Yeah.
But
we laid it out so heavy last episode. You guys
I'm gonna lay out again. Wilfred Nancy doesn't employ a backup goalkeeper.
Wilfred Nancy bungled. I can't even. I won't start. You go.
I'm just saying. You can't give Coach of the Year to a guy who doesn't have a backup goalkeeper. Like that's
lost them the shield on that.
He literally, like, he's a great coach. We acknowledge and have repeatedly acknowledged. We kissed the ring. Dude, I said that Wilfred Nancy should be the head coach of the U.S. national team. I put that out there for the bots, okay? And then he didn't have a backup goalkeeper, fumbled the shield. The entire city of Columbus now doesn't like Lobbing Scorchers.
Nope.
There is that element at play here.
Yeah.
It's not personal. It's
personal for me.
It's just the fact that to be my coach of the year, you have to have played your backup goalkeeper the last time you played the Seattle Sounders. That's always been my criteria.
He didn't even win anything. What has he won this year?
Leagues Cup.
Oh man! Wow! What an
MLS
accomplishment.
Cup last year, but like,
okay, but that's last year.
That's last year. I mean, they're not the best team.
They bungled. They completely shit the bed at the CCC
are
final.
Holding a grudge over this, but I stand by that, and that is the case against Wilfred Nancy. And I think there's a lot of weight to that. Okay.
Regardless of what you think about Wilfred Nancy, if you like him or not, you can't legitimately tell me that he was a better coach than Tata Martino.
And that brings me to Tata. Tata has the best MLS team ever assembled.
Correct.
People are like, well, Messi was gone for a lot of the year and they were still so good. Like, how great of a dude. I could coach that Inter Miami team without Messi to the Shield. I really think that I could.
Yeah.
Like, a lot would go into that. But I think that once the dust settled,
I'll be data analytics,
okay? Once the players accepted that I had been hired for some reason and we had talked it out, I think I could at least get them in contention to the Shield.
Yeah.
I'm just saying
you'd at least make the playoffs.
It was not that sick of a coaching job. It just really was not. Like, their team without Messi was that good because it's the most loaded MLS roster of all time. I don't agree with giving Coach of the Year to a guy that I don't think the loadedness of the roster necessarily in itself should be taken into account.
But everyone else is doing that for every other award, so why not Coach of the Year?
But it's also it's literally the best roster of all time.
It is.
It's the best roster of all time.
The whole point of this, though, is you have to take into account the roster. You're a coach. If you underperform your good roster, you're never going to be in contention. But apparently, if you overperform with a dog shit roster, you are in contention. Chris Armas. Anyway, continue. I'm sorry.
So yeah, that brings us to Chris Armas, who I think is probably going to get it, and I think I might. I'm gonna vote for Schmetz. I think I'm gonna vote for Schmetz. I'm talking through these candidates right now. I'm gonna vote for Schmetz. Chris Armas. Okay. He has a good case in the sense that this award, it usually does not go to a coach like Tata or Wilfred Nancy, frankly. It usually goes to a coach like this who takes over a smaller market team or a team that doesn't have any expectations, that was bad last year, and turns them to respectability. It's like who had the best bad team that we all thought was going to be bad, but then turned out to be respectable award. That's what this award is a lot of the time. And I think Chris Armas is the one who fits that criteria because the Rapids were awful last year. They were bottom of the West last year. And Chris Armas comes in. He took a lot of heat from the pundits and the fan base. They said that this was a terrible hire. He took a lot of criticism for his tenure at Toronto FC and honestly dating back to his time coaching the Red Bulls. And he came in and was like, everyone thinks it's a bad hire, but we got Georgi Mihailovic, we got Zach Steffen, who wasn't even that good of a signing, and a few other it was a pretty big roster makeover that the front office brass and Chris Armas did, and the Rapids had a pretty good year. My thing is okay, they had a pretty good year, but compared to what? They were not that good. They were at 1.5 something points per game, 1.52, which is solid, but +2 GD. They gave up 57 goals, so not a good defense at all. I think there's a little bit of fraudulence going on, which is not even to take away from the fact that they had a very good, impressive turnaround year, and their trajectory, I think, is positive right now. I just don't think if the Rapids were Shield contending, then I'd be
easy.
Or
even top 3 in the West.
Yeah, Western Conference basement to 1.9 points per game. Armas beasted that.
Mm-hmm. They've lost 4 and 5.
They were not that good that he should be such a shoo-in for this.
Yeah.
Dude, the answer is Schmetz. Schmetz is the one whose team could end up
winless in what was it? They didn't win.
Terrible start.
Yeah.
But also, God, his case is just, it's frustrating because it's so good. It's so much better.
And narratively better.
It's narratively and substantively, it's such a better case than any of these three guys. The coaching acumen that it took for him to start running this team with Paul Rothrock starting and Jordan Morris as the 9 instead of Raul Ruidiaz. The season after you move on from the greatest player in club history, Nico Lodeiro, you're building the offense around a new number 10, which did not work early in the season. It was not working until the coaching staff, Schmetz and the coaching staff, made the adjustment to make Jordan the full-time 9, okay, to start Paul Rothrock. Starting Paul Rothrock, we've talked a lot about Paul Rothrock on this show. that content does not get delivered if the staff.
He should win Coach of the Year based on that. Period.
Yeah, exactly. Like you, as a coach, the conviction that you have to have in your ability to evaluate and like just the belief that you're showing in the player for him to give Paul Rothrock the platform to do what he's done this year. Name me another coach that's had like a similar hit like that, man. Like I'm getting like worked up because like,
you know why I was getting worked up last episode,
like none of the pundits will talk about this at all. Like I doubt he'll even get one vote except the one that I have now convinced myself to cast for him. The thing is, I wasn't going to do it because everyone would just call me a homer. But like I look at these things as objectively as I can. If Wilfred, Tata, or Chris Armas honestly had a better case, I would vote for him. I'm not voting Rusnak for MVP. I'm not voting I'm not voting Ymar or Reagan for Defender of the Year.
And we track coaches on this podcast famously.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We don't have a blazing hot press conference this week. Sorry about that. It was a bye week, but we'll be back with that after decision day. Schmetz is a coach of the year. I'm voting for him. So just to run down my ballot, can tell me what you think of this ballot. MVP. I'm voting Messi. Don't care about his minutes. I feel convicted in that. Not going to change my mind. I just decided that 10 minutes ago.
Hell yes.
Newcomer, Gabriel Peck. Young player, Diego Luna. Defender of the year, Jordi Alba, not Steven Morea.
Let's go.
Goalkeeper, Christian Kalina. Comeback, Maxi Morales. Changed that, made that decision, committing to that. Coach, Brian Schmetzer. Changed my mind there too. Committing to that. That's my ballot.
I love that. I love that ballot.
I think it's kind of heat. I like it.
I think it's you have out pundited the pundits, Ari.
Dude,
you're the top pundit.
I'm like
now.
the top pundit after this. That was some insane punditry that I just laid down.
You guys literally just had to sit through, and we are at an hour and 30 minutes now. You just sat through the mind. You just went through the mind.
Are we at an
Liljenwall.
hour 30? God, we've just been cooking. All right, we should probably wrap this up then. But before we get out of here, I did want to just shout out some of the best decision day matchups. There's going to be a lot of movement going on, but I think the big things to keep an eye on that we've at least been talking about this week are who gets the last two spots in the East, right? It's going to be either DC United, Montreal, Philadelphia and Atlanta are still technically alive, so that's going to be fun to track who gets in there. And then seeding in the West, Seattle could be 3 or 4, so we'll be tracking what happens with that. But then it's a logjam below that. Vancouver or Portland will be duking it out for the wild card spots. And I think what's kind of nice about this decision day is Seattle's seeding, there's whether they're going to be 3 or 4, but
I want to be Portland.
Yeah, like that's but it's also like regardless of what happens in Seattle's game against Portland, it's a lot of like you can sit back and kind of watch the bottom feeders fight it out and like don't have to like
which we thought we were going to have to be earlier in the season.
Exactly. Like there's a point this season where we expected, I think, this team to be in that situation. So it's nice to see them up in the top 4, solidified in the top 4, and really playing for 3 or 4 is a much better situation to be in than duking it out at 8 or 9. The Portland Timbers, we're not going to do an in-depth preview because we're running low on time.
You can go listen to Nos Audietes. They did a long one.
Listen to Nos Audietes, but my nutshell scouting report on them is a very good offense led by an MVP caliber player. Forgot to put him on the ballots. Evander. He has a good shout, but I'm not going to give it to him. He's not going to win it, but he is a very good player. But they love to get bammed on.
Yep.
Their defense, not good. Really, if you want goals, they're happy to give them to you. So Seattle's going to have to capitalize on that. And then the last thing that we did want to note is shout out Obed Vargas for making his El Tri debut, his first appearance for Mexico's senior national team. We're not the biggest El Tri fans on this show.
He's making me an El Tri fan.
He's making me an El Tri fan, which this is what we're going to close on, which is that the Obed's Mexico team destroyed the USMNT 2-0 in an international friendly last night. And I am at the point where the vibes around this team have deteriorated enough, even with Pochettino coming in, that I'm fully on board with where I think you've been with this team for a while, which is taking joy in the comedy of their struggles and
Correct.
shortcomings. I still am a fan of the team and root for them, but I couldn't help last night respecting the comedy of what was taking place, and really just I'm kind of as much as it low key does pay me to say it, I'm a little on the bandwagon that this player pool is kind of fraudulent.
It's a little fraudulent. We will dig into this more. Let's do a bonus episode. If you're a subscriber to Sounder at Heart, we'll put it on the private feed.
Oh, okay.
So sounderatheart.com/LS, subscribe and support. Private feed. We'll do a bonus episode.
First bonus ep in Lobbing Scorchers history.
Yeah. This is what happens when we cook too much.
We are going to call it right there for episode 69. I did not realize we had went that long, but honestly, I think it's sick that we laid down 90 minutes on a week where there is no Sounders game. And really, like, it was legitimately beneficial for me to talk through the end of season awards ballot. I literally changed 3 of my votes after talking through the cases for all the candidates, and I think I came to the right decisions on these. So appreciate you going through that with us, and I think it was all around a pretty good discussion. But anyway, we're gonna call it right there. We are going to see you after decision day, unless we do this bonus pod first.
Maybe we'll do a midweek. Who knows?
We'll figure.
We'll see when we see you.
We'll keep you posted on that. But like, comment, subscribe, write us a review.
Share with all of the candidates.
Share with your favorite pundit who voted for the end of season awards. We'll see you for episode 70. Until next time, we out.
Peace.